question. I'm Nandita Sharma in Sociology and Ethnic Studies. I'm a bit confused. I'm a bit confused about some of the comments that were made today concerning collective bargaining. You say that because the faculty haven't accepted a 5% pay cut, that you've been forced to make further cuts to colleges and programs. Yet, I know for a fact that in collective bargaining, UHPA offered to loan the administration the amounts of money that would be saved by a 5% faculty pay cut. We offered to loan you that money with the guarantee that once the financial crisis was over, we would have it returned. I think that's a very generous loan offer from all of us, recognizing that we're already amongst the lowest paid faculty in our cohort of universities. I think that's an incredibly generous offer, and that was rejected over and over again by the administration. Secondly, if you're trying to make the argument that if the faculty take a pay cut, that's going to lead to more money for colleges and more money for programs, then why has the administration refused to guarantee that in the last best final offer that they've put forward? In the last best final offer from the administration, you've rejected the union's offer for a loan. You've demanded a pay cut that's not going to be paid back. As you say, the 1990s cuts, we're still waiting for those to be paid back. How long are we going to wait for these cuts to be paid back? And in this last best final offer, you're not guaranteeing that there won't be retrenchments. So why on earth would we go for that? And why are you not acting in good faith and saying, okay, we've got a budgetary crisis, the faculty's willing to loan us some money, we'll take that. Why are you demanding that we pay for it through an automatic cut that God knows when it will be paid back, if ever, and probably, as you say, never?
I think we're in a position to discuss the final offer because it's now a public document. I think there's a general principle of labor negotiations, which is you don't bring things from the internal negotiation out. There are some very complex issues with the proposal alone, but I mean, we're not really in a position, I think, to discuss that. So the proposal, I think the budgetary plan did assume that there would be salary savings from labor negotiations. Those being unrealized led to the greater cuts that have now happened. If those cuts are in part rescinded, that means that operating units will have more money. Is this a situation we're happy about? Absolutely not. But it's a fact now that if there is agreement on labor, then the effect of the most recent rounds of cuts would be partially mitigated for the operating units. I mean, that's what I think these slides were attempting to say.
Excuse me, I'm just going to really quickly ask this question, and then I have to leave. I have a class. My name is John Osorio, and I'm from the Center for Hawaiian Studies, Hawai'i. Okay. Your presentation really indicates a couple of things. First of all, that we're in a crisis not of our making, and that while tuitions are rising because of increased enrollments, for faculty to be cut rather than simply to take a reduction in salary would harm the students. And I think everybody here recognizes that. You cut classes, it'll make it more difficult for everyone. The question is that since, if you have enrollments increasing, and given a lot of other arguments that could be made about the central place that the University of Hawaii, and especially Manoa, plays in the economy of the state, why has there been no advocacy from either the president or the chancellor to the legislature and to the governor in terms of at least meeting us halfway on these cuts? The cuts came because the state is going through a difficult time, but at the same time, the state of Hawaii, the students and the people in Hawaii are trying to enroll in this college. The state has an absolute responsibility to this, and why aren't we calling them out on it? And why aren't you doing that?
Has to be the same, which is what we're trying to do is lay out where we are, what we need to be internally Manoa. We understand there is a political context, and we understand that that the president and the chancellor have external responsibilities. We're trying to talk about what needs to happen internally given the budgetary reality, not the context that led to that reality. That's a reality that is subject to, obviously, some mobility going forwards, but the reality right now that Vice Chancellor Cutchaw has to deal with is 66 million fewer dollars. And that's really what we're trying to, when I was at the faculty meeting in September, and there were a lot of questions about where are we, not sort of how did we get there, and what we're trying to do is to lay out where are we. There was a lot of what-ifs about how we got there, and there are a lot of possibilities, but we're trying to, as much as possible, not look at every factor that led us to the situation and understand that's something that needs to happen. But what we're trying to do is to make sure that the information about the budgetary situation we find ourselves in is made as clear so that the faculty can engage in precisely some of this analysis that you're now asking us to do.
Just on the collective bargaining thing, I'm a UHP board of directors, but I recognize that the personal service, I'm John from the School of Accountancy, I recognize that the faculty is not the only personnel cost at this university. It looks virtually certain that UPW and HDA are going to come in at between 5 and 7%. I do not think there would be anything wrong with you putting that in your budget figures. If they do come in at 7%, UPW and HDA, how much is that cut off, that $4.1 million shortfall that you're projecting in 2012?
I would have to go back and do that, and I will do that for you. I don't have that percentage.
You don't. You ballpark it? You can't ballpark it?
I think the faculty salaries are at least 2/3 of our projected salary savings there.
So 7% of that remaining third. I couldn't follow. That hard.
But do we know what the contract is going to be for FY12? In other words, the conversation about FY10, FY11.
At the end of fiscal year 12, you had $4.1 million
At the
shortfall.
end of fiscal year 10, I had a $4.4 million shortfall.
4.4, then there was 14.1.
11.2 at the end of 12 after applying all the revenues to it.
Okay, so
Okay, and of the $14 million we had projected in potential salary reductions, I would say at least 2/3 of that was faculty off the top of my head without going back to do analysis.
Okay, so there's definitely going to be something. The other of course, I realize a lot of this stuff where we can get savings is really at the system level, not at our level. So, but do we have? I can't tell. I tried to look at the university's financial statements, and it doesn't give the fund accounting data at all, unlike the state. Do we have any special funds we can raid? Just general question.
I've gone through this a lot with system because they're actually looking for rating special funds as well. Every one of our special funds is set up by statute. The statute, except for tuition and fees, very closely dictates how we can spend that money. If you take parking fees, for instance, they only can be spent on the parking enterprise. We can't go and take that money and divert it to something else. The same with faculty housing. RTRF, special funds is restricted to investment in research. That doesn't say what kind of research, so you have more flexibility in that. Tuition and fees clearly states that we can use it for operational costs. It's the only one that is clearly without any kind of restrictions in terms of spending.